looks like a blast.
Being the hour of 7 o'clock, we'll open the Selectmen's Meeting of May 20th, 2015. And we would like to call your attention, or have your attention for a moment of silence. We lost two of our Oxford family members recently. Gary Degamasian, who was a school teacher and a principal at the Oxford school system for many years, and also Herbert Morrow, who was the custodian at the Chafee School from August of 1983 to January of '87. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. We have several items on the agenda this evening. The first item is reorganization of the Board of Selectmen. And I would like to begin by saying that I will not be seeking the position of chairman again. I've had it for several years, and I feel that I need a break. And that chair at the end looks pretty good to me, the one that Jared's sitting in. So I'm looking forward to moving down to the end of the table. With that being said, I'd like to nominate the vice chairman, Dennis Lamarche, as chairman.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Being none, I'll call for the vote.
Abstain?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, 4 in the affirmative, 1 abstention, motion carries. Are there any nominations for the position of vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Mike Vos as our vice chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? There being none, call for the vote.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Unanimous. I would entertain a motion for secretary.
Make a motion to nominate Jerry Mahota for secretary.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? There being none, I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Abstain.
Yes, 4 in the affirmative, 1 abstention, motion carries. We are reorganized. We can play musical chairs.
I just rolled my chair.
Uh-oh.
An alias is there it is.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. We'll take it. It's attached to the,
Is that your
Get in there?
microphone?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Give it to me.
Maybe this doesn't have to come with me. Yeah, I'll leave it for
Actually, yeah. Doing Karen's job, yeah.
That's my.
How do I get it together?
Now you get all the pressure.
There we go. Somehow I got the wrong thing here. Here we go.
I'm a bookend again.
Go through every one of these.
Do you?
Now, yeah, that's you. The one there.
Board's pleasure. I don't know if you wanted it or not. Part of the discussion with Access Oxford was to see if they thought there was a reason to keep that group around.
So should I ask them now?
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to hold that during the appointments and we can come back to it at the end.
Do it at our next meeting?
Yeah, or we could do it at the end of this meeting.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Board. So the first thing on the agenda is our annual appointments. So I guess I'll go right through the list. For animal control, we have full-time animal control officer Kathy Flynn, who would end her term in 2016. And we have on-call assistant Rosemary Connor, who would also end in 2016. Pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion, we appoint those two individuals.
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes, 5 in the affirmative. They are appointed for next year. Board of Appeals, we have regular member Mike Leduc, who will be a member until 2020. Pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion to appoint Michael Ledoux to the Board of Appeals.
I'll second that.
It's been moved in second. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes, so Michael's appointed to the Board of Appeals to 2020. Board of Registers, we have Robert Shedd, which he would be in term till 2018. Pleasure of the board.
A motion to appoint Robert Shedd to the Board of Registers.
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. Questions? Then I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll also say yes. So that's 5 in the affirmative for Robert Shedd. The Charles Leonard Entertainment Fund, we have as trustee Joe DiPasquale, who would be in term till 2018. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to appoint Joseph DePasquale to the Charles London Entertainment Fund.
I'll second.
Moved in second. Questions? Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes, 5 in the affirmative. Civil Defense Police Officer Albert Adams till 2016 and Richard Nealon till 2016. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to appoint Albert Adams and Richard Nealon to the Civil Defense Police Officer.
I'll second.
Been moved in second. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll, yes, so that's 5 in the affirmative. Civil Defense Police, we have Leon Cahill till 2016 and Ronald Fisher Senior till 2016. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to appoint Leon Cahill and Ronald Fisher to the Civil Defense Police Recreation.
I'll second.
Been moved in second. Questions? Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes, 5 in the affirmative. Constables, which are being renewed for 3 years. So all of these are good through 2018. Albert Adams, Brian Bullitt, Russell Casey, Gregory Kofsky, Richard Nealon, Stephen Lapamato, Ralph Miller, and Michael Plant. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to appoint those individuals as constables.
I'll second.
Been moved in second. Questions? Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes, so all of them are approved. Custodian for tax title properties, Claire Wilson, till June 18th of,
No, June 30th of 2018.
June 30th of 2018, excuse me. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to appoint Claire D. Wilson as the custodian for tax title properties in the town of Oxford.
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. Any questions? Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes, so that's 5 in affirmative for Claire. Downtown Beautification Committee, all of these are good through 2016. We have Alfred Banville, Carolyn Banville, Kathleen Bowles, Kimberly Den, Joel Maisley, Olive Prunia, John Reckner, George Starkis, and Dorothy Starkis. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to appoint those individuals to the Downtown Beautification Committee.
I'll second.
It's moved in second. Any questions? Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes for those people on the Beautification Committee. Open Space Committee, we have Jane Stafford till 2018. Pleasure.
Make a motion to appoint Jane Stafford to the Open Space Committee.
I'll second.
We moved in second. Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll also say yes to Jane. Police matrons, all good through 2016. Jamie Goodman, Brittany Morgan, Rebecca Prefontaine, Joanne Summers, Deb Light, Bonnie O'Leary. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to appoint those individuals as police matrons.
I'll second.
Been moved in second. Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes to those police matrons. Board of Selectmen's Assistant. Through 2016, Karen Crandall.
Make a motion to appoint Karen Crandall as the Board of Selectmen's assistant.
I'll second.
Been moved in second. Any questions on that one? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Yes.
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 I guess I'll say yes. So that makes 5 in the affirmative. Representative to the Worcester Regional Transit Authority. Brian, I'm going to say it wrong. Palaya. I got to get that. I'll get that. It's good for the year of 2016 through 2016. Pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion to appoint Brian Palaya as our WRTA rep, I guess.
I'll second.
Moved and saying, one of you guys will want it, huh? Okay. Pleasure of the board. It's been moved in second. Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes. Congratulations.
Thanks.
It's like one of those things
Yeah.
like I got. You just can't get rid of it. Okay, second delegate for the CMRPC is Terry Cummins till June 30th of 2016. Pleasure.
Make a motion to appoint Terrence Cummins as a second delegate for the CMRPC.
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes to Terry. Good luck with that one. All right. Now, very good. We're done with that. Next thing on our schedule is Community Preservation Act presented by Kathleen Roth.
It's actually
You-
Catherine Roth.
Catherine, I'm sorry. I'm
No
sorry.
worries. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. New Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Former Chair, members of the board. Mr. Palaya, thank you for having me here this evening to speak to you a little bit about the Community Preservation Act. I brought a presentation, which I gather, I get up on the screen like so. And so I thought I would just walk you through the presentation. It talks a little bit about our organization, the organization that I'm representing this evening, and then talks about the basics of the Community Preservation Act and how communities are using it around the state kind of 15 years into the program. So without any further ado, if it's okay with you, I'll just go ahead with that.
Please go right ahead.
Also, good evening, members of the
Would-
public.
Would you either like to sit so that people,
What would be the best way to proceed?
according to our access people, sitting down, I guess,
Sitting
is
down.
better, so.
Okay.
And that way there, you could,
Otherwise, if you want to stand, come over to this microphone
Yeah.
on your left.
yeah, you could either stand there at that mic or
Ye-
whichever you feel better at. 'cause-
I'll just sit then.
Very
Yeah.
good.
So, as I mentioned, I'm here representing the Community Preservation Coalition. We're a nonprofit organization formed of 7 other nonprofit organizations that are active in the 3 programmatic areas of the Community Preservation Act: open space preservation, historic preservation, and affordable housing. And then so these organizations came together really in the 1990s to help get legislation passed that would become the Community Preservation Act. It took quite some time to get the CPA passed at the state level. And then these organizations decided to stay together and continue working together to help communities. Once CPA was passed in the year 2000, they decided to stay together and work to help communities understand the Community Preservation Act, to adopt it if they were interested in adopting it, and then to help them actually implement it. So we also work with communities once they've adopted CPA. Since the year 2000, we also opened up our membership to communities, the communities that are working with the program. And so we also, at that point, expanded our steering committee to include representatives of 4 different communities. So we now have community representation on our steering committee, 4 members from currently Hatfield, Nantucket, Templeton, and Newton. And we do have, again, it's optional for communities to join the coalition, but we do have very high participation rates amongst the communities that are working with CPA, the 158 communities currently. And these are some of the services that we provide to communities: technical assistance, a website, which I encourage you to check out if you have an opportunity. And then we also are very active on Beacon Hill in terms of advocating for the program and helping to get additional funding for the program more recently. We've been working to get some additional funding for the program. So I'll talk a little bit more about that further on in the presentation. So again, what is the Community Preservation Act? It's state enabling legislation passed in the year 2000. You can see then Governor Paul Cellucci signing it into law in the upper right-hand corner. And state enabling legislation just means that communities can participate in this program or in this law by adopting it locally at a ballot election. So communities have to opt in order for the program to be operational in that community. So the main focus of the program is to allow communities to establish a local dedicated fund for projects in a number of different programmatic areas: open space preservation and recreation, historic preservation, and community housing. So those are, or community affordable housing. Those are the three main programmatic areas of CPA that the funds are used for. And as I said, we're now 15 years into the program. We have 158 communities across the state, big communities, small communities, cities, towns, island communities, and communities up in the Berkshires. Really, all different kinds of communities are now participating. And we have one community that's going to be voting on CPA this coming fall. That's the city of Woburn. That's the one indicated in yellow on the map there. So we have almost a half of the state communities are now working with this program. So it's become, 15 years in, a pretty established part of the municipal scene here in Massachusetts. These are just some figures through last summer. We'll be updating these pretty soon as communities enter in their project information into the CPA state database during the summer. Just showing kind of what the program has achieved in the past 15 years across the state. But really the number to look at, probably the most important number here is the number in the lower right-hand corner here. $1.4 billion have been raised with this program, raised and matched by the state for projects in these areas across the Commonwealth. And so that's quite a bit of money that has really been great for communities at the local level. That money has been invested right in communities, right in the downtown main streets of our Commonwealth communities, and it's created local economic activity and jobs. So especially during the recent economic downturn, that additional funding for projects was really important. If you travel around the state, which I do, obviously, for my work, you will now, as I said, 15 years into the program, see a lot of signs like this around the state because the projects that are funded with these funds locally tend to be very popular, kind of compelling projects that the community tends to support. All of them have to be approved by the local legislative body. So all of them have to receive a positive vote at town meeting or of the local city or town council. So again, most communities really see this as a very community-oriented fund for projects that are very popular, and so many communities like to erect these signs at the sites where the projects are being undertaken so that local taxpayers know exactly where their funds are going. So you'll see these in many communities now. And CPA can also fund many different, a really broad array of projects. You think, okay, only those three categories. What are we going to do with that money if we adopt CPA? But as you can see from these images, it really can encompass a number of different types of projects, from rehabilitating a beautiful historic municipal building like this in the upper left-hand corner. You see that. The regilding the dome on the town hall in that picture, to rehabilitating a historic lighthouse. That lighthouse in the image there is on Gay Head on Martha's Vineyard, and it's currently being funded, they're moving it away from the cliff with CPA funds because otherwise it was going to fall into the ocean. So the entire island of Martha's Vineyard has CPA, and they all kind of threw in some of their CPA funds to actually move that lighthouse away from the cliff to save it. To affordable housing, to again another town hall renovation or rehabilitation project, to preservation of beautiful, really fertile farmland, and to preservation of some of our most valuable historic documents in our towns and cities throughout the state. That picture there is from the town of Mendon. It's an actual copy of the Declaration of Independence that they did not have the proper storage facilities for and was endangered, and so they were able to both preserve it and also to build the proper storage facilities for that. So again, a very broad array of different types of projects can be funded. So when a community votes to adopt CPA, in order to fund this local dedicated fund, it adopts a local surcharge on local property tax bills. So it doesn't affect the tax rate locally, it affects it essentially is a surcharge on property owners' tax bills after the tax bill has been calculated. And it can be up to 3%. The community decides what level up to 3% it will adopt and will vote on a given percent. Nowadays, we're seeing most communities vote to adopt CPA at either 1% or 1.5%, because it is a bit of a heavy lift, especially coming out of the more recent economic downturn, to go that full 3%. And then once a community has adopted CPA and implemented that surcharge, after the first year of collecting those surcharges from local property owners, it then becomes eligible every year from then on to get a match from the State Community Preservation Trust Fund that was established when the CPA was passed in 2000. So it becomes eligible to get an annual check from the state for use on these local projects that the community decides on. And so that, again, it's a steady stream of funds coming into the community. There are also a number of exemptions that the community can decide to vote on when it adopts CPA. This is a menu of the different exemptions that are possible. The most common ones that we see adopted by communities are to exempt the first $100,000 of residential property value. So that gets exempted from that surcharge. More recently, we've seen communities also adopting an exemption similar to that for the first $100,000 of commercial and industrial property values. And that was just made possible, that particular exemption, in 2012, when the law was amended to allow a kind of the same exemption for commercial and industrial properties as for the residential properties. And then we also see many communities opting to vote for the exemption for low-income homeowners and low and moderate income senior homeowners, because sometimes those folks would have a hard time to afford the surcharge on fixed incomes or whatever. So those are the most popular of the CPA exemptions. And then once a community does vote to adopt CPA, it is required to establish a committee called the Local Community Preservation Committee. And that is established by passing a bylaw locally. And the bylaw would determine the total number of members of that committee. There are 5 required members, but you can have up to 9 members total. So the bylaw would determine, would you have a 7-member board or a 9-member board? We do see most communities having the full 9 members on this board. And also determining how those additional members would get on the committee, whether they would be appointed by the Board of Selectmen, say, or named, sometimes a town moderator will name one of those members or appoint one of those members to the committee. Sometimes they're even elected positions. So again, the bylaw would determine how those extra members get on the committee, on that Community Preservation Committee. And that committee is really to administer the program locally. It is tasked with administering the Community Preservation Act program locally. And it essentially has a role of assessing the community's needs for those funds on different types of projects. They typically develop a local CPA plan. And then they also get input from boards like the Board of Selectmen, other town boards and commissions. And they also are required to get input from the public. They are required to have one public hearing annually to get input from the public. And then their task really is to recommend a list of the most compelling projects that are submitted to them. They will solicit projects through a form, which is usually available from the town's website. And any group in the community, including town departments, but also local booster groups or sports groups or whatever, can also apply for funding through the program. And they will apply to this Community Preservation Committee, which will review the projects and then decide on a list of the projects to send on to town meeting for town meeting's review and approval. So again, just to review how the projects happen, local groups submit an application to the committee. The committee then reviews the projects and gets input from boards and committees and the public. It then recommends a list of projects to town meeting, and then town meeting then discusses and votes on those projects. And only the projects that get the approval of town meeting will actually get the CPA funds. There are requirements in the law that 10% of the funds annually that are raised through the CPA program are either set aside or spent on projects each year. So either they have to be put into a reserve fund for use on that particular type of project, or they have to be spent in each year. And the funds set aside, if you don't have a use for them that year, they can roll over from year to year and accrue for, say, saving up for a larger project. And then there's an optional 5% of the revenues can be allocated or appropriated to the committee for its use in paying for surveys or appraisals or other things that they need to kind of scope out projects for recommendation to town meetings. So it's kind of a self-funded committee. It doesn't require a budget from the town. It gets its budget from the program itself. The CPA is not a permanent thing. A town can choose, after 5 years after voting it in, it can choose to revoke CPA in the same method that it adopts CPA, which is a town, either the town meeting vote followed by a ballot election or a citizen petition with 5% of the registered voters' signatures on it, followed by a ballot election. So it's a two-step process to adopt. So you can revoke in either that way, or you can also, at any time after adoption, you can raise or lower your surcharge up to that 3% limit. So if you were to adopt a 2% surcharge, you could decide that maybe that was too much, and then say lower it down to 1% if the community found that it was too much, or switch around those exemptions, that menu of exemptions. That can be done at any time after adoption, again by the same process. It does require an actual ballot election. So what could the community use these funds for? What types of projects are kind of the most popular uses of these funds in communities around the state? And so these are, again, and I should have mentioned, all of the images in this presentation are of actual CPA projects around the state that were done in the past 15 years. So in the area of historic preservation, these are the types of things that can be done: restoration, rehabilitation, acquisition, preservation, or adapting a historic building for current use, for more modern use. These are the types of resources: buildings, structures, parks, vessels, landscapes, documents, and artifacts, real property. So probably, again, the most common types of projects we see are town hall rehabilitation projects, and that includes all kinds of, wiring, any kind of upgrades to bring the building up to current code. So if you have any kind of municipal building that, like an old school, that you want to reuse for another purpose, then you can use your CPA funds to bring it up to current building and access codes, plumbing, septic, ADA compliance. All of those things can be paid for with CPA funds. So these are just some images. City of Gloucester up in the top left corner. Bottom image here is from Sandwich. Those were completely redone with CPA funds. And the bottom image on the bottom right is the interior of the town hall in Randolph, Stetson Hall, that's being rehabilitated. We also see many communities rehabilitating buildings for, as I said, some other kind of use. So these examples are from Lexington and Cohasset. The building on the upper right-hand slide there is an old historic print shop in Lexington that was rehabilitated and is now being used for brain-injured adults, for housing for them in the community. And the lower image here on the left-hand side is in Cohasset, where they had a historic library which was no longer being used, and so they created some affordable housing for senior citizens in that building. And then the image on the lower right-hand corner is from the town of Chelmsford, where they're rehabilitating, again, a town hall for use as an arts center. So again, many different types of rehabilitation and then adapting the building for current use. There are many instances where we see communities actually granting funds to local historic societies or other nonprofit groups in the community that may own a historic building but have a difficult time getting the budget to really keep those properties fully up to code or fully rehabilitated or whatever. So this is an example in the town of Concord where a local nonprofit applied for some funding for work on their historic building. In those instances, there has to be a public benefit to the project or the project can't be funded. So in many cases, the nonprofit will grant a historic preservation easement or restriction on the property to the town. So the town can then have a say and make sure that the property isn't altered, that the most historic features of the property are maintained into the future. And then town documents, as I spoke earlier about, many communities are using them for restoration and preservation of historic town documents. This is Mendon and Boxford. In terms of open space, I don't know what the needs are in your particular community for open space, but we are seeing many communities use CPA funds for open space projects. This is a very popular use of the funds. And the types of projects we most frequently see are preservation of really prime agricultural land, or sometimes of the last working farm in the community. Sometimes communities don't want to lose that last one or two working farm. They want to keep them and make sure that they stay in agricultural use. Sometimes CSA programs are developed on them. Sometimes they're leased to a local farmer. Again, communities are very keen, especially with kind of the local food movement and the importance of local produce these days, are very keen to kind of hold on to their agricultural, remaining agricultural lands within their town borders. So that's a very popular use. Also protecting vulnerable land, either whether it be land on the coast, which obviously isn't going to be an issue for you, but maybe you have some important wetlands or wildlife habitat that your community, or a viewshed or a historic land that's important to your town. And again, that would be something you could use your open space funds for. Drinking water supply protection. This is a very popular use of the funds. These are 3 images from 3 different communities: the city of Cambridge, the town of Sudbury, and the town of North Andover use CPA funds to protect their drinking water supplies. So again, that's a very common use of the CPA funds. This area of CPA and outdoor recreation has become very, very hot in recent years. In 2012, we worked with the legislature to amend the program. Prior to that time, you couldn't use your CPA funds to rehabilitate your existing parks, playgrounds, and athletic fields. And we heard from communities across the state that they wanted to be able to do that. It just didn't make sense to only be able to use your CPA funds to develop new recreational facilities, which was the case beforehand. So we worked with the legislature to amend the law, and now communities can use their CPA funds to rehabilitate their existing outdoor recreational facilities. And we're just seeing a slew of projects go forward across the state now, as communities really upgrade their playgrounds, their athletic fields. This image on the top right-hand side is in the town of Hanover. They're creating a whole new, beautiful sports complex, which both through rehabilitating some existing sites and then adding to them, that's going to be, I think, the biggest one on the South Shore when they're done with it, and that's currently being built out right now. But again, this has been with all the importance of youth sports these days, this has been a very, very popular area of CPA for these types of projects. Hiking and biking trails are also very, very popular. So we see many of those. And of course, rehabilitating and improvements in parks are also very, very popular across the state right now. Dog parks, skateboard parks, traditional parks, memorial parks for veterans, and so on and so forth. And community gardens are also very, very popular. So those are the types of outdoor projects. And then in the last area, the affordable housing category, there are, again, many different ways you can use the funds, either to acquire buildings for affordable housing, to rehabilitate them, such as that library in Cohasset, to rehabilitate it for development of senior affordable housing. Housing for veterans is very popular. So again, it's the community deciding what are its housing needs and then using its CPA funds to meet those needs. The housing can be used to house or for people who are earning up to 100% of the area-wide median income, and you can see the figures there in the upper left-hand box there in this community. So you can see that they're pretty generous figures, and again, the community can decide to limit the housing to lower income levels if it wants to, but if it wants to provide housing, such as housing for families earning this amount of money, it could be for municipal employees, school teachers, firefighters, or elderly folks on fixed incomes or whatever. But again, the projects that are funded with CPA funds are projects that the community wants. All of them have to be approved by town meeting. So no housing is going to be developed that the community doesn't want. And so that's why CPA funded housing has been very popular with communities. And as I said, we're seeing many communities developing housing for the returning veterans that are needing housing, reusing buildings, historic, some very historic structures. This historic building you see on the upper right-hand corner here is the Ames Shovel Shop in Easton, which is a town near where I live. And that is it's nationally historic because it was a workshop for shovels that were used in the Civil War and also to build the Transcontinental Railway. And I think at one point that shop was making 2/3 of all the shovels made in the world. So it's been around for a while, and a developer wanted to completely demolish them and build something else. And so the town worked with yet another developer who was willing to rehabilitate those structures with some help with the town CPA funds. And you can see the image on the lower right-hand corner of one of those shops that was rehabilitated for housing. So they've got both market rate and affordable housing, with the CPA funds only used for the affordable housing, and other funds were brought in by a private developer. So again, it's that type of project that we see CPA funds going towards, sometimes meeting specialized needs, as I mentioned, the brain-injured adults in the town of Lexington. And sometimes small projects like working with Habitat for Humanity is a very popular type of nonprofit that many communities are partnering with to, really develop kind of small, discrete, affordable housing projects for the community. Some communities are really using the opportunity to install solar panels in the new housing that's constructed, so that the housing will continue to be affordable kind of going forward for the folks living in that housing through the use of solar panels or whatever that can cut energy costs. So we're seeing that as well. So before I finish, I just wanted to kind of let you see some of the numbers for your town. This kind of just walks you through the how you would calculate how much the average homeowner in Oxford would pay with, say, a 1% CPA surcharge. So what I've done is I've just taken this year's average priced home value, which is about $215,000, and then if you had that exemption for the first $100,000 of residential property value, then that would allow you to subtract $100,000. So you'd have the net house value surcharged of about $115,000. You'd apply your municipal tax rate to that, and you'd get the amount subject to the CPA surcharge. Then you apply that 1% CPA surcharge to it, and you come up with $18. So this average assessed home in your town would be required to pay $18 with a 1% CPA surcharge. So fairly affordable for the average homeowner. Not a huge, heavy lift at $18. I did want to talk a little bit about the state funding piece that I mentioned from the beginning, that when you opt into the program, you do become eligible to receive annual checks from the statewide CPA trust fund. The monies in that trust fund come from fees charged at the registries of deeds all across the state. So that when folks go in there to do business at the registries, to get that registrar stamp on the document, they pay either a $10 or $20 fee that will go towards CPA, will go into this statewide trust fund, and then is used to provide matching funds for the communities that are participating in the program. And then in more recent years, in the last 2 years, because the number of communities working with the program has continued to rise, and the revenues into the state CPA trust fund have fallen pretty dramatically over time, especially with the housing, the bursting of the housing bubble. We saw the revenues really fall off after about 2007. And so with more communities opting into the program, the state match rate has fallen considerably. It was at one point 100%, and now last year it was 31%, the year before 52%. And then the years prior to that, it hovered around 25, 26%, which is still a pretty reasonable return, but we were concerned that the rate had fallen down so much, that matching rate had fallen so much. So we worked with the legislature, and we were able to get additional funding for the program for the last 2 years, $25 million in fiscal year 2013, and last year $11.4 million that went into that trust fund, and that provided that higher match, the 52% the year before, and then last year the 31%. So we're working with the state legislature again. Actually, the state the state Senate was negotiating about the budget today, and they have, as part of that the Senate budget, the state Senate budget, they have a amendment for an additional $25 million for the CPA program for this year. And so we're hopeful that we can get that additional funding, either 20, maybe not 25, but maybe again $11 million, $15 million, so that we can again push that matching rate up a little bit for communities that are participating. But as I mentioned, it is an annual disbursement for all CPA communities administered by the Department of Revenue, and the match rate for this year, if there is no legislative action, is projected for about 18–20%. So we are concerned that if we don't get the additional funding, that the match rate will be lower this year. And then we also are working on a long-term strategy for providing additional funding for the program. We have legislation pending with, as you can see, a lot of support from the state legislature. The program is very popular, and so we are seeing that the state legislators are very supportive of the program in general, and we're hoping that, again, we can get this law passed and get the program on firmer footing going forward for communities that might be considering adopting it in the future. So just to look at some cost and revenue scenarios for your community, again, with a 1% surcharge, the average homeowner would pay $18, and you would get about $120,000 annually. And that's what you would be raising locally. That would not include the state match. I haven't included that here because it's hard to estimate how much it's going to be in addition each year. But it gives you a sense of how much you would raise with the program. And that would be funding that would be raised every year. So it may not seem like a lot, but it's a steady source of funding that can accrue, and you can also bond against CPA, anticipated CPA revenues. So bonding is a source of funding under CPA that can pay for some larger projects that come up. So again, just an estimate, if in fact we were able to get that additional funding and we were able to get the match rate up to say 25%, which is where it was a couple years ago, you can get a sense of, again, with the additional state match distribution, kind of what the numbers might look like at a couple of different surcharge percentages. One last thing before I finish is that I did want to talk about another feature of the program is that we're seeing that many communities that adopt CPA are very successful in leveraging the local CPA funds to bring in additional funding into the community for use on these local projects. So we have seen more than $712 million in additional funds brought into CPA communities for use on these projects. And those are in the form of state grants, federal grants, private donations, individual donations, and so on. Because oftentimes in order to be eligible to receive a state grant or a federal grant, the locality has to put in some funds. And the communities that are able to do that are often the CPA communities because they have this steady source of funding coming in. So that is, these are just some examples of leveraging. These are just a very few examples. But you can see how the monies really do attract other monies into the community. So it kind of broadens the whole community's economic pie, so to speak, by attracting this other funding into the community. So again, just a few examples of how that works. So just to sum up, some overall benefits of participating in the program. As I said, it's a steady source of funding along with that additional bonding capacity. The incoming checks from the state, from the CPA Trust Fund, can make local projects more affordable for local taxpayers. The additional leveraging power of the funds. There are other ways that adopting CPA can strengthen the community's financial outlook. We've seen one community's bond rating go up 2 notches when it voted to continue with the program. They put it on, after the 5 years, they put it on the ballot to see whether the community wanted to revoke CPA, and that community overwhelmingly voted to continue with the program, and then soon after, a couple weeks later, the bond rating agency raised that community's bond rating a couple of notches. And they specifically said that that vote had on CPA had contributed to that, raising the bond rating for the community. It does provide local economic activity. These projects being done locally provide local economic activity and jobs. And then, as I mentioned, since 2012, there are more uses for the community, like in the recreational category in particular, being able to use it for outdoor recreational facilities. So again, I encourage you to look at our website if you have any other questions, or certainly I'm happy to answer any questions now, or if not now, I can leave my business card, and we have the hotline, so if you call the number on the card, you'll get me, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Catherine, for a very informative presentation, a lot of information. I'm going to ask the board, are there any questions? Go ahead, Mike.
I don't have any questions. I mean, it was a very well put together informational session here. I mean, every time I wrote something down, you had the answer for it
Oh,
already.
good.
So, one question is, the money set aside from 1 year to another when you allocate towards something. You mentioned that you can put it towards a project you're looking at, whether it be a school or. How many years do you have to use that money? Is it in perpetuity? Can you go on as long as you want with it, or?
You mean the monies that are in your CPA, your local CPA account?
Yeah, the money you set aside for a certain project. Say we're looking at restoring a building, but it's going to take many, many years to have the funds to do that. How many years do you actually have to accumulate that money towards a project?
Indefinitely.
Indefinitely?
Indefinitely, yeah. I mean, the program, once it's adopted, unless you act to revoke it, it will just continue on. So you have to, after that 5-year period, you have to actively, members of the community, if they're not happy with it, they would have to make an effort to, to revoke it. Or the Board of Selectmen could put it on the town meeting warrant, do you know what I'm saying? But otherwise, the program just continues, so you just continue to accrue funds. Or if it's a big project, as I said, you can bond under CPA against the anticipated or estimated, revenues coming in. So again, bonding under CPA tends to be very easy because the program's already in place, and you're not going to have to raise people's taxes more than that surcharge that's already kind of accounted for, if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely.
What's
So,
that?
yeah.
Alan?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I have a couple of questions. One, is it $18? Is that for each tax bill? So that'd be a total of $36? Or is it two $9 increases, or is
That
it
would
one
be
time?
the annual cost.
So it'd be like $9 each tax bill?
Do you have 2 tax bills or 4?
2.
You have 2, so it'd be 9 each tax bill.
Okay.
Yeah, it would get divided up across the year, yeah.
Another question, you said town meeting, you have to vote on stuff. Like the 1%, 1.5%.
Right.
If we approve this, does it go to town meeting to see if we want to adopt this or
Yes,
not?
yes, it would have to go to town meeting, yep. Either that, or as I mentioned, another avenue is if there's local citizens that are interested in adopting it, they can collect signatures from 5% of the registered voters, submit that to the town clerk, and then it would go directly to the ballot from there. So it's either the 5% of the registered voters' signatures submitted to the town clerk, or it has to get passed by town meeting and then go to the ballot election. It's always a 2-step process.
What's that? Selectman Sad?
Thank you. Competing for the matching funds, will you have like 150 communities so far?
158, right?
Okay. And we've seen how the percentage of matching funds has gone down. I would imagine that communities that submit projects for funding would be competing with other communities for the funds that the state is going to be matching.
The funds are distributed, the funds are not distributed to the community on a project-by-project basis. It just comes in a check, okay, based on what you collect locally. There is a formula within the program that tells the Department of Revenue how to divvy up the funds. So there's an actual mechanism, there's a funding formula within the CPA statute that dictates how the funds will be divided up amongst communities.
So it's not on each
It's
town's
not dependent
individual
upon,
project?
no. So you just get a check based on how much you've collected the previous year, and also based on how much there is in that fund, okay? So the entire fund is divvied up essentially each year, according to that formula that's in the CPA statute, amongst the participating communities, all right? The entire amount that's in that state CPA trust fund is divvied up to communities. Each community gets a check, and then once the community receives the CPA check from the Department of Revenue, that just gets deposited in your account, in your CPA fund locally, and then you spend it however you like. It's not, the monies aren't distributed on a project-by-project basis.
Then again, I guess I'm concerned about the formula, because we've seen how the state can manipulate formulas. We see it with our school system. What about a town like Plymouth, who is a historical community, communities down around the Cape? They have a lot of projects going. Will those communities get a bigger check than Oxford?
No, again, the formula is within the CPA statute. The state has never touched that formula, and I think it would be political, it would be crazy to try to monkey with it, because it's worked so well for 15 years and people are happy with how it's working. So I can't imagine the state ever changing that formula. It's within the CPA statute itself. And so what you get as a community is based on how much I would worry more about, are there enough revenues in that statewide CPA trust fund to provide enough of a match, like a large enough percentage match for your community. That's our concern as an organization, and that's why we're up at Beacon Hill every day, trying to get additional funds for the program. We have been successful the last few years, and as I said, we are continuing to have a lot of success there, both in terms of our short-term strategy, which is to get another $25 million, hopefully for this year. The funds have been coming from the state budget surplus, so we're hopeful that there will actually be a budget surplus this year. We're not sure. It is a tight funding year. But we also have a long-term funding strategy, and that's the legislation that our legislative sponsors have filed. And the long-term strategy is to try to adjust the deeds fee, the fee charged at the registries of deeds, which hasn't been adjusted at all, and we've lost quite a bit to inflation over the 15 years.
And that brings me to my other question. The Registry of Deeds, each county has its own registrar of deeds. Now, what they collect, is that universal statewide? Does it vary by county?
It's universal statewide.
Okay.
Yeah, all across the state, it's the same fee.
Okay.
Yep.
And if we wanted to find out more about the funding mechanism and the formula, where would we get that information?
Well, we have information on our website on that, and I'd be happy to send that to you. I could send you a link to the discussion on our website. And then also, the State Department of Revenue also has information on their website, so I could send you that link as well, if you wanted to.
I would be interested in the
Sure.
formula and the past history of how that formula was used
Okay.
for different communities across
Sure.
the state.
Be happy to send that to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're most welcome. I had a few things. This is probably gonna add a little workload to our tax assessor, because they're the ones that are gonna have to figure out the percentage and so on, and they keep tabs on that. And the other question that just kind of befuddled me a little bit, is that you said that a low-income family like that has 4 people was up to 83,000, and they could possibly be funded for a project, an individual
No,
family?
no, they
or
could,
no?
if some affordable housing was built with CPA funds in, let's say Oxford adopted CPA and decided to build some affordable housing units. So those units would be permanently deed restricted as affordable housing and stay within Oxford's
Okay.
affordable housing stock, okay?
Alright.
And the families that could live in that affordable housing, if
Would
they
have
were
to meet
renting
that
or
criteria.
buying, would have to fall under those income limits. They would have
Okay.
to, they would have to show, they would have to attest that they qualified for that housing.
Okay.
It's always done in a way to make sure that, you know, that they would actually qualify
Good.
for the housing.
Yeah, that, I misinterpreted that.
Yeah,
Well, again, I thank you.
you're very welcome.
We really appreciate it. It's
My
something
pleasure.
we'll discuss, I'm sure, and, you know, it's something that the town will ultimately really decide. They're the ones that,
Absolutely.
you know, at town meeting have to approve this, and then at the town vote also, so.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
thank you again
You're
for
very
coming in.
welcome, and
Appreciate it.
I'll make sure to send that information on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night,
very
Catherine.
Thank you.
Pretty sure that $85,000 number wasn't for Oxford, that was probably a number out in Roseland or Newton or.
Well, that would be the 52% match
No,
on the 1
no,
minute
it
or
was
something.
the 85.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
85,000. Scratch that about affordable housing. It's
Yeah.
we love to put that affordable housing.
Thank you all for coming.
Makes $150.
Right.
All right, next item on our agenda is Oxford is going to do a little presentation for their budget, I guess.
I don't actually have a presentation
Oh,
tonight.
well,
We delivered to you guys around May 1st a binder, one for everybody on the committee. Hopefully you guys all have it, have had a chance to review it at this point. Basically, you know, the contract that we signed back in February, I think at this point now, requires us to come to you and present 3 years worth of projected budgets, our current budget, and a bunch of other documentation supporting all of that. We are still awaiting our finalized financial statements from our Form 990s and stuff from our CPA, based on the way the state runs their laws. The individual taxpayers' due date is earlier than nonprofits, so that I believe is due sometime this month. So they assured me they'll be finishing up with that and getting it to us within the next week or so. So as soon as I have that stuff, I will have it delivered to you guys. So I don't know if you have questions or if you just want me to hit the bottom line, talk for this year, if you want to talk about last year, or I'm really open to anything you guys have on your mind.
I'd like to ask a couple of questions.
go ahead.
I'm just looking over your budget, Dan, and just trying to educate myself, your operating expenses here. Verizon wireless phones, you got $2,000. What exactly is that for?
So that is for our staff members. Not only is that how they get contacted directly, but we use that. There's a pretty robust data plan associated with those phones, so we can live stream from different locations and different areas. That does take up a couple. It's several phones. It's also a couple of iPads. You know, and data devices like that, and it's not all phone calls and stuff. It's the whole communication is the primary mode of getting a hold of, like, Tony or Lisa, and how we stream. That's really a a big component. If we're out in the field doing something, we think it's worth streaming, that's how we do it.
And you have, in essence, you have one full-time employee, right? Tony's your one full-time
I
employee.
have one full-time employee and several part-time employees.
I'm just saying, $2,000, it just seems very excessive for one full-time employee.
But we have multiple devices. So it's not, and that's an annual cost.
Right, no, I understand that. And then your regular phone service is $2,000. Is your regular phone number $2,000? What is the deal
Yeah,
with that?
that's part of our, we have the charter business plan. So it's a business phone service that we have. I'd have to look into the exact details. I kind of leave that up to the office team to take care of.
It just seems excessive, $4,000 between your landlines and your cell phones. That's a lot. I mean,
If you think of it from a personal perspective, though, if you have a family of four, I know my cell phone bill for my 4 people is $200 a month.
well, I understand that,
So
but
that's-
that's it doesn't really matter to me what you spend on your family. But I'm saying these are taxpayer money in essence. This is
Well, it's
coming.
cable subscriber money.
Okay, cable subscriber, which I assume they're taxpayers as well. I'm just, 4,000, that just, I don't know that you can explain that enough to me to justify $4,000 for a landline and some for cell phone. I'm looking at one full-time employee, and we're spending $2,000 on wireless phone, on a wireless plan. I understand you get live streaming, but just seems excessive to me.
Would you prefer we didn't live stream from remote locations?
I prefer you didn't live stream. When do you live stream?
We've done it from the bandstand for concerts, for the Easter Bunny, for
So you're live
Christmas.
streaming from the bandstand right to television,
To the web.
to the web.
Yes.
So what, spending $2,000 a year to do that?
That was a request of this board that we provide that service.
Oh, no, I understand that, I know what the board requested because it was me who made the request. We'd asked you to have the meetings taped and people were able to go online and watch them. I never asked for live streaming of selectmen's meetings. We have that now. There again, I just think that's something, I think we need to take a look at that and see if we can save some money on that. It's $4,000 is just, what question today? Now, your budget, you're looking at, your annual budget is 100 and, what was the bottom line, 150, was it 156,000?
157 for,
Okay. And out of that 157, the money that you get from the subscribers is what, roughly $100,000 a year?
no, the money we get from the subscribers is all of it. Up until this point. The only source of funding that
What is your yearly budget?
that is our yearly budget.
Plus, yeah, okay, that's your yearly budget, $142,000. No, I understand that. How much of that is coming from the capital money? You get $100,000 for capital improvements. How much of your operating budget comes out of your capital budget?
None.
None of it does?
Capital money is capital money. It has to be used for capital purposes. So in our case, it's cameras, it's equipment that we use to broadcast, it's microphones, cameras, lighting equipment. When we bought the jibs that we use to hang the cameras over parades and whatnot, it's that kind of stuff. It is not operating money. We don't pay salaries with it. We don't pay our regular bills with it. We don't do anything other than capital expenditures with it.
Okay.
And that capital money was a one-time disbursement of $100,000 when this board.
The reason why I asked the question was, and I'm probably either confused or misinformed here, but we have a disbursement from Town of Oxford Charter Communications for operational costs. and that's $115,000. And we have $100,000 for capital costs. So if your disbursement is $115,000, how are you funding $142,000 budget?
Because we haven't gotten all of the PEG access money from the town. Last year, at the beginning of 2014, if you recall, the town manager at the time authorized or told Charter to send the money to this town so we could have this discussion. It was his negotiating for a contract. So we are actually running in arrears. There's monies from 2014 that has not been distributed. Of, at this point, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000.
So you're,
So we,
what would a full disbursement be if you got all the money?
I don't know, you guys have taken the documentation and I don't see any of the numbers from Charter anymore.
Brian, do you know what that would
It's
be?
about 40 to 45,000 a quarter, so between,
45,000, so the
so between
180,
160 and 180.
180 would be would be your full disbursement.
That's per quarter.
We
45 per
get
quarter.
about between 40 and 45 a quarter.
So that's 160 a year.
45 times 4 is 180.
Every like 40.
So 160 to 180, depending on.
180. And I would say the one thing, I know we're here to talk about your budget, but you guys are here, so we might as well talk. The one thing I've been mildly disappointed with is the programming. Not the live programming, but the programming from of events around town. It just seems to me that there really isn't enough of that. And when I think of Access Oxford, I don't think of you guys showing us selectmen's meetings or ZBA meetings or school committee meetings, because that's something that is fairly easily accomplished. I mean, we could do that ourselves for the most part. When I think of Access Oxford, I think of people at home getting access to things that are happening around town, going to all the events that take place and having them on television. I've been discouraged with the programming because every morning I would make a habit of turning on Access Oxford, and for a year almost straight, I was watching this court show about, you know, the judicial system, and it's, I don't know, it runs about an hour or something, and it was on every day for an hour, and I noticed that at certain times of the day I would flick on and I would see the same things, and most of them seem like they're recorded, and they're not things that are happening in this town. I'm watching line dancing, and it's definitely not happening in Oxford because I don't recognize the facility, I don't recognize any of the people. So if I had one criticism of Access Oxford, it would be there's just not enough things on those stations that are things that are happening in town. I don't really watch Access Oxford to see recorded shows of other communities or even a movie or something like that. That's not why, for me, I turn it on, I want to see whatever, Oxford High graduation, I want to see
Which
things
we
that
do cover.
things that happen at the community center, things that happen at the senior center, things that are happening around town. That's why I watch it, and I'm just not seeing enough of that. You know, you get a lot of people in town who can't leave their homes, elderly people, and that gives them access to things that are happening around town. If it's not on, then they can't get there. That to me is what Access Oxford is all about. Do you have any thoughts on that? Any way you can increase local programming? What is the major roadblocks of not doing that?
Well, for one, we've lost volunteers because we are a volunteer-driven thing, but because of the unsurety of where we've been over the last year and a half with our relationship with us between the town and Access Oxford, we've had people go, well, let me know if you ever get it straightened out, and they walk away. So I've got a core group of about 10 volunteers. Many of them are elderly, so we can't obviously have them running around all over the place. Some of them have medical conditions that prevent them from lifting. Our camera equipment isn't exactly lightweight. We don't use home consumer grade equipment. We use commercial, professional quality gear. Our cameras run between $6,000 and $14,000, and they weigh 30 to 50 pounds. So you need to be able to handle that. I do have some young volunteers. To your point, a family has just recently come forward and actually filmed an event last weekend at the community center for us, and the girl is working on putting that together. For the other kind of thing which you don't always see is that we could shoot an hour's worth of video, but maybe only 10 minutes of it is really interesting enough. Like for example, the fire department does a picnic for seniors over at the bandstand every year, which we film. And how many times can you watch a picnic? First of all, second of all, how much can you show the food and the people eating? That's sort of it gets old. One of the things that is in my goals for the studio is to grow our membership base so we can get out and do stuff. This past weekend we premiered a new show that we're calling Peg Sports, which is we're going out to cover local, like, Little League games, youth soccer. When the basketball season rolls around, at the community center, we'll be at the community center doing that stuff. I know there are adult softball leagues that we may go out and cover. It's a work in progress. We put it together and are starting to develop that. And as time goes on, what we find, we'll adjust it as we find things that work and things that don't work. We'll be adjusting that. And honestly, I need people who can edit, because we do have tons of stuff that we film that is local. But editing all that together, if we take 2 or 3 cameras to a particular event, we have to edit that and make it a cohesive program so that when you're watching it, you can understand. It makes sense from beginning to end. It's like, you don't want to see the whole high school graduation from one camera perspective, and then another camera perspective, you see the same thing. You want to kind of intermingle those and mesh them together so it's smooth, and it when you're listening to the speakers, that if you change the camera angle, you still get the audio even though you're looking from this side, or maybe now we've got a camera up close and we're getting a close-up of the speaker. Editing that on a manual basis is very time-consuming, particularly to keep the audio in sync.
All right, and I understand, and I'm not trying to discourage volunteers. I understand that volunteerism is way down. People just aren't volunteering like they used to.
It's a problem everywhere.
And it's tough to get people to do these things nowadays, especially.
And this particular is a very time-consuming thing, not only in the filming, but in the editing.
But if we're not able to get people to edit and do these types of things, that's a big problem, because when you got to pay out $103,000 in salary and wages, and you can't get boots on the ground, so to speak, to bring us the programming. I equate it to a company having a CEO and he's making $1 million, but he has no one working for him. You know what I'm saying? He's got no one to do the work.
I know exactly what you're saying.
So that's the tough part for me, where I got to look at it and say, is it worthwhile to spend $103,000 with at this point, because of the lack of volunteers, very limited broadcasting. There's just not a lot out there right now, because, like you said, it takes time to edit. So
well, and to that point, that we don't always get notified of the events of things. There, like this particular event that we filmed last week, it was on Saturday. We got notified on Friday, hey, can you come film this? And that makes it difficult for us. Even in the contract, we ask for stuff we do for the town, the board meetings and et cetera, for 48 hours notice if something changes. So that we can make sure that our people who cover those things regularly are available, or if we need to have a substitute, we have a substitute. When you're dealing with other organizations, shall we say, I don't want to call them loosey-goosey, but, you know, we don't always get notified in enough time to cover them. I mean, our people who do that have lives outside of
Absolutely.
of Access Oxford. Personally, I have 3 other things that I volunteer at besides Access Oxford, so my wife will kill me if I take on something else.
I hear ya.
You know what I mean? So
Absolutely, absolutely.
I don't really want to be killed, so.
No, you know, Dan, like I said, you're a volunteer. I appreciate what you do. I know it's thankless. I know that firsthand. So you're not doing it for praise, but as members of the board, we look at these fees that are coming from the residents of the town. We got to make sure that we can look at them in clear conscience and say,
Oh, yeah.
Access Oxford is worth the money you're paying. And so it's a tough sell.
Well, you're also between a rock and a hard place in the fact that you can't use that money for anything else.
We could choose not to collect it, is what I'm telling you.
You could choose not to collect it, absolutely.
Right. And that's when you tax people, I know this isn't a tax usually, but in essence, it's a tax.
Well, it is.
I like to make sure that the tax money is being used wisely, that we're just not spending it to spend it. And so those are my thoughts. I would like a little more clarification, maybe in your next budget presentation on your phone service, and maybe give us an itemized bill or something along those lines, because unless I see it firsthand, I can't comprehend the $4,300 in phone expenses for a company that has one full-time employee. I can't comprehend that. I can't wrap my head around it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else have Alan?
I have a question about your mileage. For 2014, you had $1,800 of mileage. 2015, you have $1,800 of mileage. For 2016, you went to $1,500. Why did you go lower as the years go on? 2017, same thing, $1,500.
The future budgets and even this current year is an estimation of miles that we will drive and reimburse, because we all use our personal vehicles. We don't have an Access Oxford truck. That would be really cool, but let's face it, that's not going to happen. You're not going to see the satellite truck with Access Oxford's logo on the side of it driving down the Mass Pike. That's really cool, but not going to happen. So it's an estimation of what we're gonna do traveling, whether it be to cover a local event, or if it's we do go to regional conferences where we're members of several organizations that hold training seminars and things like that. So we get our people keep their skills current, learn new things, talk to other Access type corporations to ensure that we're in the ballpark with what is consistent with what's going on from in terms of a organization from our size, what our funding is, and what's going on in the rest of Massachusetts, New England, and nationally. To Mike's point about volunteerism, nationally there are a lot of Access corporations that are folding because they can't get people involved and interested and to keep them active. So it's I don't know how, it's a nationwide epidemic, I think. We're fortunate in Oxford that we do have a core group of people that are interested in doing this to keep it alive and get the information out there. What happens at meetings and what happens at the schools or at the town hall or at the senior citizen center, or again, keep going over to I keep pointing like people can see it, but you know where I'm pointing to the bandstand or whatever. It's Italian. I have to talk with
Bandstand's actually in that
If someone ever
direction.
made me, yeah, well, yeah,
Wasn't Christopher
yeah,
Columbus?
backwards. I have no sense of direction. Heck, I am. But you know, it's over there.
Yeah,
so,
right.
So, you know, we're bucking what I see as a concerning trend nationwide, and you know, reading the blogs and talking with people, it's really scary because you know, if people like me and Tony and Lisa and Betty and Mariel and Sammy don't do what we do, then you guys essentially are gonna, yes, it's a public meeting, but you got 3 people left, right? So you're sort of, I don't wanna say in secret, but nobody's really seeing what's happening, and they're not getting the information out. And to me, getting that information out, even if it's just, quote unquote, just the meetings, that's critical. I mean, that's for the townspeople.
Does everyone who works for you live in Oxford?
Yes,
All right, so does the mileage come from their home or does it come from Access Oxford?
comes from Access Oxford.
So we're like when you go to the bandstand, that's.
We walk across the street for the
Okay.
bandstand,
So you pay for new sneakers?
no, Tony, have we bought you new sneakers? No.
New hat, though. I like your hat. I'm only
Yeah,
kidding.
we gotta let, you know, people know it's the hats and the t-shirts aren't just hats and t-shirts for us to
No,
look
I
cool.
was just kidding.
It helps us market ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm walking around and if I stick a camera sort of near you, you'd be like, whoop, and then you see, oh, Access Oxford, then it's, what's Access Oxford? And we can have that conversation and, you know, do a little recruiting as well as public education and stuff, because that's what we were founded to do. You know, we offer classes. People have not taken advantage of the classes that we offer. You know, we have a monthly schedule, regular stuff, introduction to the camera, introduction to the Anycast, which is Sammy's using one right now. It's basically a video and audio mixer that puts it all together and sends it out. So it ends up on the TV.
Right. Now, when you break down the expenses for 2014, the mileage on the other thing was $1,800. The mileage here is $128. So what do you do with the rest of the money?
It rolls into a general fund. Those are our anticipated expenses. Being the size that we are, we have the advantage, quote unquote advantage, of being able to use our operational funds where we need them. You know, capital funds is a little different, but we make our budgets are really just estimates based on what we've done in the past. If we don't use that money, we go somewhere else. We've actually this year, by having a person in the office, you know, 4 days a week, 12 hours a week, she's been able to minimize our office expenses by taking advantage of stuff like the Staples reward program. So oftentimes she'll get a case of paper, which if you bought it would be, I don't know, $20. She'll get it for $5 because she actually will take the time and fill out the rebate slips and all that. And she's
Is that the assistant director?
no, that's our office assistant. Our assistant director is Lisa, who she's part-time, but she helps coordinate our volunteers. She coordinates programming that goes on. She's sort of like a technical assistant. If Tony's tied up with something, she'll take over. If Tony has to be in 2 places at one point at once, she'll go and do that things. You know, what we find is a lot of the events happen on weekends, and they happen concurrently or at the same time or back to back. So getting people to get out there and cover those things is a challenge.
I'm all set.
Okay, Jared?
Yeah, just a quick question. I think you kind of answered it, but the difference between the revenues and expenses of roughly $57,000, is that that's the money that's going in the general fund?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, on this, I don't know if you guys, if
Yeah,
it looks
we
the same, but
Mm-hmm.
for the breakdown of revenue for 2014, the total is roughly 217,000. And the breakdown in expenses for 2014 is 162,000. So I
Yeah,
was just wondering
so-
what the balance is.
Yeah, so what that, on that summary page for 2014, there's two lines that are really, big, the $100,000 and the $115,000. The $100,000 is the capital money that came as a result of the new license agreement
Right.
with Charter. So that's literally capital money. It's in a separate, we set up a separate bank account for that, because that was never anything we had prior to that contract. So we have a separate bank account, and when we buy a new camera, for example, Tony went to a camera show last week and was able to get a really good deal on a really nice camera. So that comes out of that capital funding, whereas the 115,000 comes from the 3% that comes off of the television portion of Charter's cable subscribers, the subscriber base in Oxford.
Right.
So whatever happens, whoever subscribe, I don't know if you have Charter, but if you look at your Charter bill, there's I forget what it says, but it says basically it's like a PEG access fee or something, and it's, so if the TV portion of your bill is $100, $3 gets added on to that as a part of that contract to come and be used for PEG purposes.
So basically, I mean,
So there's two numbers
So
there,
the
and it's a
different-
little
yeah.
deceiving.
with the total, but I mean, all of that is what you have. So the difference between the 217 and the 162, I mean, whether it comes from the 100,000 or 115,000, there's still an excess amount of money. So is basically what you're saying is you try to determine where the excess came from, whether it was, well, I guess your operational amount would be depleted. So
Yeah, we're not running in an excess situation. A few years ago we were, but we've depleted all of that to keep ourselves running. As I've been here a couple of times saying we're out of money. I mean, we're literally
Right.
out of money.
yeah, no, that's why I'm curious, because there is a additional $57,000 that, and I know you've said that you guys are out of money, so that's why I was just curious as to where that additional money is going. That's the only reason why I'm
Yeah, I mean,
asking.
like any place, our biggest non-capital expense is people's salaries, and then after that, it's rent for the building, and then the professional fees, associations we belong to, the service we pay to have the meeting library available online. That's also I think it's almost $7,000 a year.
So the majority of it's just basically an account for capital.
Well, there's
For
a
anything that you
capital
wanna
account, and then
replace,
there's
right?
a general operating expense account, and we have a third payroll. So we take the money that comes in from Charter quarterly, and put that into two accounts, one to cover payroll and one to cover expenses. And then the capital money is completely separate.
Right,
It goes
okay.
for capital type thing. If we were gonna buy that truck, we would buy
Yeah.
it out of capital money, not out of operating expenses. Then the following year, the gas and and that stuff will become expenses. But
Okay.
again, crazy, be great to have, but
Yeah.
not very practical.
All right.
What's that? Yes, Selectman Sad?
Yeah, I have a question regarding the programming. Whenever you turn on the Access Oxford channel, you never know what you're gonna see. If you wanna find out when a certain program is on, I don't know how you find out. Supposing you do the Memorial Day Parade, and then you do the graduation, and people want to know when that's going to be shown. Can there be some kind of a mechanism where a schedule of programming would come up every so often, so people would know when certain things are gonna be aired?
We do have that. It runs, with the slideshows. So it pops up. Is that right, Tony? Or is that, am I confused on
It does that also,
when the schedule comes up?
the question you're saying, John, it happened before about 6 months ago. I think Dennis had questioned me on that there. And we have at 7 AM it plays for half an hour, 11:30 AM it plays for half an hour, and 5 PM half an hour, every day. So if something's playing within that 4-hour window, you'll see that schedule pop up. As he said, after a program goes, there may be a 2 or 3 minute where them scrolls will roll over again, and you can see what plays, you know, in those programs here.
Okay, so it's every,
It's 7 AM, 11:30 AM, and 5 PM. It'll tell you, that half-hour window will tell you everything that's playing for that 4 hours. So if there's a 4 hours, there's programs going, it'll tell you what they are and when they're gonna be playing. Whether it be the parade, as you're saying, or the graduation. The graduation, basically, you'll be on our station, which is 191, and it'll go on to the school end of it. That usually doesn't go on to the town one, because that's a school event. The parade will go on our station and will go on 192.
so you have to be lucky enough to catch it during
Well,
those
if,
periods.
I understand what you're saying, but if you catch, if you wanted to see something being played and you wanna watch it at 11:30 to say, oh, what's gonna be happening in the next portion of the day, then you will know that.
What about putting like a scroll
This is what we're saying.
on the bottom of of whatever you're showing? Okay, supposing you're showing the graduation, and there's the Memorial Day parade that you wanna show the same day.
Okay,
You're running the graduation first. On the bottom of the screen, can you put next broadcasting of Memorial Day parade will be at such and such a time?
okay, now, if you miss that portion of it, and then we go on to the continuation, which we do now, of the 5 or 6 programs, then you're gonna have to wait till it goes through its cycle again also, right? Is what you're saying.
It won't continually run?
Well, if you have 5 shows going, you'll have to continually show one at a time consecutive, and then wait until it goes back to its repeat. I don't know about that particular one you're talking about. We could look into it, though, as far as on the bottom, to say what's happening.
Yeah. So at any given time, somebody that turns on the TV on your channel
I know, I
will not
believe
have to
Dennis had
guess,
talked about that about
not
a year
have to
ago.
wait.
Well, if you're gonna see, if you want to see something and you want to catch it at 7 AM, then you can see what's gonna be playing. Or at 5 o'clock, you'll know what's gonna be playing.
The downside to that is, think about when you're watching like CNN or CNBC or whatever, and you've got all these different scrolls going across. You get numb to it. Personally, I get annoyed by it. So we don't want to annoy our viewers either. We want to keep them engaged and get them. So I understand what you're saying about doing a better job of communicating the schedule, what's coming up. We'll take that as an action item to look into and report back when we.
What if you have like one show that just finishes? What happens next? Is it a blank screen?
If it's a program that's not immediately after it, then you may get that 2 or 3 minute, which you'll go back into the program to tell you what's playing with the next portion. Because all our shows don't end on a half an hour or 1 hour basis. They may end up at 35 minutes or 42 minutes. So from 42 minutes to the next hour, everything is gonna be showing what plays again during that time frame.
So the schedule will come up, and then any notice slides will come up.
Right.
You know, the Daughters of Isabella, or the Cub Scouts are having a bottle in Canberra, or whatever
And what you're,
Whatever the-
and what you're saying is
notices
basically
are.
after the show is over, a program is over, there is that window, it'll tell you again what's gonna be playing within the next 10 minutes or half an hour till the next show starts.
Okay.
I mean, we try to get that settled because, again, as I talked to Dennis a while ago, he was annoyed by that too, by saying, how do I know when these things are playing? How do I know? I mean, either that or I play something
Well,
at
that's a
5
very
o'clock.
popular question with people, because I hear
It
it
is,
all the time.
and it is, and we try to solve that there. And I guess my other thing is, if you wanted the graduation to be on at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evenings, and we could do that for that whole week if that's the schedule. But there's people that want to see it in the morning too, you know?
Yeah, and we do get calls about it, and we adjust the schedule based on what people are requesting to see as well. So, one of the things that I think you all may not be aware of is that there is national legislation pending that would, if passed, provide local access channels such as ourselves to be able to actually input data into the menu that's on your cable system. So when you hit guide or menu to see what's coming up,
Would be fantastic.
we think that would be fantastic, and that's one of the reasons we belong to some of these national organizations, is because they are working with Congress to get these things implemented. So we can actually have a way to say, you know, all right, at 7 o'clock we're showing the basketball game over at the middle school, and then at 8 o'clock we're gonna roll the graduation from 2014. At 9:30 we're gonna put on what's Tom's Ireland show? Ireland on the Move.
Yeah.
You know, to take people
Irish show.
to Ireland or to experience the Irish culture. So
What about putting something on the town website as to what's coming up?
It is, I mean, as far as what goes on, we have a bulletin board of what goes on all the new stuff that comes in every day, every other day, on your channel,
When
and on the school.
When it's gonna be on?
Yes, all your programs are listed, when it's the ZBA, the planning board, and all the bulletin board information that comes through.
I think he's asking, you're asking more about
More about
the
the
public,
programming.
or the public
Public
portion of
program.
it as opposed to the government.
Yeah.
That
Not the government, but
yeah, as opposed to
like the bandstand, a band is playing on the bandstand. There's a fundraiser for the Little League, or,
yeah,
Those are on.
we have
are they on the
been
website?
we have been talking about different ways of getting that out to the public. Our website is one of them. We would have to send you something with the schedule, you know, but that schedule may not hold because we got notified of another event, and we happen to get that up and on. So you might turn it on at 7 expecting to see a show about the animals down at the animal shelter, but we've got this dance competition that was held at the community center because that came in, and it's a hotter, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
unfortunately, we're not like your CBSs or your
Right.
ABCs, right? We don't have
Software for that.
that kind of equipment and software and whatever. So that piece would be a very manual process.
I was told that there were other access stations that can participate in the sharing program with programs that they have that may be of interest for
We-
local.
We do that. So
But that's what he was just complaining about. He doesn't want to see something from other
I mean,
towns.
we don't wanna see people line dancing and.
And I hear what Mike is
educational
saying.
stuff, political stuff, things that would be interested.
I hear you, I hear what you're saying, John. I've got the jury duty thing out there. I go to the state to look for new things for that. The EPA, when it came down from town manager, I think, or somebody sent me some stuff from the EPA, and I've been running that pertaining to the water runoffs and programs of that, not only on your channel, but ours, to see these things. I have our secretary look for these things from the state for new items that are informational, whether it be like her program that she was just trying to tell us about the open space. To go out and put 24 hours a day of Oxford alone,
Oh, you couldn't do it.
yeah, okay,
I understand.
there's not enough of things in town to say that we can do this here.
And that's why I'm saying that if you
I
could
look
get
for
information
the
from
term
other.
they use is bicycling for other towns, and I work with other towns that, well, Leicester and others, that have other items that come up there, and we try to put them on the air. The cooking show, that comes out of Worcester, there's other shows, because I talk to these people, and they have the same issues we do. Can you send us some things from your town? Webster loves to see our stuff from the bandstand, because they don't have that availability in Webster. So we try to share that with Webster. Our biggest thing is Oxford first and foremost, and anything between here, we try to fill in with the surrounding towns.
And I know you got growing pains, okay? I mean, this is, I know you got problems with finding volunteers to do certain things, but there are some things that other communities do that we should probably be looking at. Like, for example, Town of Blackstone. They have, every week, there's a regularly scheduled program that they have. And I don't know if it's a civic group or what it is, but they come in and it's like a people's forum.
Talk show.
A
I
talk
understand,
show.
sure.
And they can come in and ask questions or have concerns about what's going on in the community. And people are interested in that kind of stuff. I was talking to the guy from Blackstone, and he says, you wouldn't believe the people that watch that program.
They do watch it. Millbury's the same way too. Millbury has used some of the stuff I have given to them in Millbury.
Right.
I have talked
And
to
if
the,
there's controversial issues in the town,
there
they
is,
debate it there. If people can, can go to this and ask the questions, call in. They have call-ins. So, I mean,
That'd be interesting.
it gets people in the
That's
community
very,
involved.
very dangerous.
Yes.
it is,
Who's a
John.
$2,000 fine?
I will open the doors to you. Would you want to come out and do a talk show? I've talked to town manager about this, about having a talk show when he came down to do his articles there. I've talked to the chief, I've talked to the fire chief. They want to come in and I asked them to give me, 15 minutes of a talk show type of a thing, which we tried with Oxford, our town. You
And I
probably
think
heard that
that's-
around a couple of
I think that's
times.
a good idea. I think the department head should set some time aside.
Well, that's
I mean,
exactly what-
They don't have to do it out every week, but
No,
like
no, but
once
on a
month
monthly
or
basis,
something.
exactly what we try to
Well,
do.
this is what our department does, this is what we're looking for, we
Yep.
need volunteers, this is what, what's going on.
And I have got some
Police department or
respond.
the fire.
Sure, I have got some respond from Sherry Bemis, because she has let me take and go over some of the new pieces of equipment and some of the older ones to show what these things can do when they have the fire shows down there. And I talked to her a couple of days ago, and she's waiting for me to get together to do another program about the new piece of equipment that's just been renovated, one of the fire pieces of equipment there. I guess we just did one of them over anyway, but these are things that I want the public to know. I mean, I talked to Russ Rowe about, what's the moderator do? And we were gonna try to get together before the meeting, and we just didn't get our time schedule together. They're all out there, but it does take the time and coordinate people, whether it be you, or the chairperson, or the town manager, so we can get them at our studio, sit down, and have a 2 or 3 person debate. Love to do that. We talked about that a long time ago. Even with our camera person back there, she can verify that with a show pertaining to the political arena here. What do the town politics do, the town manager, and et cetera? And it just kinda went flat.
It's too bad.
I
because
mean, I'd love to see it go back
access
up again. I mean,
Or any
And
access program.
that's the
it
part
is,
of, part
it
of
is,
the
it's a
mission.
tough one, and by all means, any of the viewers out there, please join us, because we can use your help. You know?
Well, I don't wanna manipulate this, and I think we need a dead last.
Well, that's what I was
We're
gonna
not
say
dead.
is,
Not dead.
poor guys.
And I just wanna say that I'm glad that we're all on the same page as far as the budgeting is concerned. I know that we had our issues in the past.
Yep.
Trying to resolve a contract, and now we're both on the same fiscal year as far as reporting is concerned, and that's a big help to us.
Yep.
And I hope it works for you as well, which I'm assuming it does.
Yeah, we still have stuff that we'll have to do on a calendar basis for like the state stuff and the
Yeah,
federal
but
for
I mean,
our.
that does not affect.
But no,
Our
what
budget-
it was
our
that
budget.
transition from one to the other that was bumpy.
Well, I'm glad it's over.
Thank you, John.
Too.
You kind of stole my fire a little bit, because I was going to say that it's good to see us kind of getting our act together as far as the town and access. We've got a contract now. I mean, you're showing us your expenses and stuff. It's really working well. You've mentioned so many things. I can relate, and Tony, you said it. You get 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to try to program shows for that whole time is monumental. I think you're doing a decent job. I have to agree with Mike. There's things you put on, you say, what are we watching this? But I can understand, Tony. We've had this discussion many a time.
A black screen
know.
is worse than
Right.
having a repeat.
You know something that because I'm on Facebook with you people, and I've been getting pictures, and it's like, while we were talking here, I was saying that'd be a great thing to see. You know, it's like the Little League. I saw dozens and dozens
Yeah,
of them.
and that's
Now,
that's
if those
part
were
of
on the
that-
TV and the
that's
kids
part of
could
that
go on
peg-
that, you
peg
know,
sports. That's where we started.
you know, because people love to turn the TV on and see themselves. You know, so anything related to the town, well, they do. You know, I mean,
Post up on Mike, will you?
Please
No.
don't. Please
you
don't.
know, I mean, can you imagine?
I don't.
You know, those little kids. That's what I was thinking.
Absolutely.
That you know,
Fall
see their
festivals,
pictures coming across, and you're like, whoa, you know,
And that, actually, to that point, one of the things we did around the holidays was ask people for holiday photos, and we got a tremendous response for our first
right, that
for our
you
first
do
crack
around the
at that.
holidays,
And
which is nice
and
because
we-
you
and we
turn that
rolled
on,
that.
you see,
Yeah, you see all
and,
kinds of
and, you
stuff.
know,
It was-
it's a little interesting to sit there to say, well, gee, who's? Oh, I know that person. I know that kid. You know, so kind of relating a little bit to what Mike says. You know,
Yeah, we are definitely
you know, so-
trying. We understand that there are things that I'll flip it on and go, oh, not the foot thing again.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of feet, so
Exactly.
yeah, the reflexology or whatever it is on the. On
Well, I
your
do
feet,
have a question though. We have a cable advisory committee, and is that something we should continue to have people on this advisory committee?
I definitely think so. It's a good. I don't want to semi-independent body. Obviously, you guys would appoint the members, right? That's how it works, and they serve for whatever the term is on that, and they can be an intermediary between the town and charter, or the town and us and the town. They can interpret, and if we had as a group used them better when we were negotiating the contract and all that, maybe that process would have been smoother. I don't know. It's just that's just a thought. But I think definitely having that is good, because then they can look at what we're doing with sort of an independent eye, and they could potentially talk to other cable advisory committees and see what they're looking at, and you know, find out what things that we might be missing, because we're looking at the professional associations, but that deal with public access, but a local community may have a completely different idea as to what needs to happen or what should happen. So, you know, in my mind, the more the merrier. I would love.
Well, I agreed, but it was just something we thought we would bring up before we actually appointed that committee tonight.
Yeah, I
so.
noticed it was absent from
Yeah,
your
so-
list of.
and that was the
committees.
reason we kind of wanted. Again, to me, it's the new relationship, the give and take. You know,
Right, and-
this is great to have you guys in.
We definitely appreciate it.
You know,
and anytime you want to come out and hang with us and learn how to run a camera and spend 4 hours editing for
my
a
spare
5
time.
minute-
You know, yeah, between sleeping and going to the men's.
Sleep is highly overrated.
Well, if there's nothing else, excuse me, Terry, would you want to come up and make a comment? I'll allow that.
Terry Cummings, 9 Locust Street. An observation. I get out to the community center almost every day and I work out on treadmills. The treadmills have 3 TVs in front of them. I don't watch the TV anymore because it seems like every time I turn it on, I get the John Birch Society. I look at what the other people are watching on there, and I don't see anybody watching Oxford Access. They're watching these different talk shows and stuff like that. But if there was something on there that would draw their attention, maybe they would watch Oxford Access.
Is our channel available there? I don't belong there, so I don't.
I have turned it on a number of times, and like I say,
Okay, so it's like a regular cable package there.
Right.
I know a lot of gyms have
You
a
get the-
very
yeah.
small selection of. So.
Well, they're working on it, Terry. You know,
Yeah. What time do you work out, Terry? What time?
Morning?
Like 8 a.m.
No.
Not that early.
9, sometime between 9 and 11, something in that area.
And is it crowded when you're there? I'm just
Sometimes,
curious. Okay.
sometimes I have to wait a while for a treadmill.
Yeah, it's good to know. That was a thought
Like
that,
I say, I'm the only one I've ever seen turn on the cable channel
Yep.
for this, to see what was presented.
yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people don't know that it exists still.
Well, the new channels too,
the new
I think is still something.
And actually, I saw a promo that Charter put on that now says your local channels
Right.
moved, and
Yeah.
that just popped up like this week,
Right,
or
right.
late last week. So that will help. You know, part of the funding that the town has received was $1,000 as part of the license agreement for us to advertise, or the town to advertise that. We had asked for that money, but then it ended up in the town accounts. So Brian and I talked about that a couple weeks ago. So you know, we'd like to do flyers and mailers, or you know,
Yep.
whatever, to make sure people know where we are.
All right, unless there's something else, I guess, thank you for coming in.
Gonna vote on the budget?
Yeah, we need to vote on the budget.
Oh, we
Yeah.
do?
I would appreciate it.
Oh, all right. Well,
Let's try, Dennis.
I'll entertain a motion to approve their budget.
I'll make that motion for a discussion.
Second?
So we have a motion and a second for discussion. Go right ahead.
What do you recommend, Brian? Hey, it's why we
Wait,
paying you the
that's not a
big bucks,
discussion, That's a
man.
question.
Well, that's part of this, a discussion is questions and answers.
I'd recommend their budget.
You recommend their budget? Did you look it over thoroughly?
Well, I looked over what's in there. Based on the answers you got to your questions, I think they're reasonable.
Okay.
Any other questions? I do have a question. We're voting on their proposed budget, is that correct?
Correct.
Is that, okay,
Right.
cool. All right, thank you. No other questions, I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes, that's 5 in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen.
No,
We
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
That will certainly make
Keep
some of
up the
our
hard
jobs
work.
easier.
So the next thing on our agenda is town manager's report.
Okay. You guys have the meeting minutes of January 13th, 2015 for your approval.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that we approve the minutes.
Second?
It's been moved and second. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 Abstain. We have 4 yeses, 1 abstention. It approves.
Okay. Memorial Day Parade is coming up this weekend, Monday, May 25th. Parade will begin at 10:30 at the American Legion Post 58 at 227 Main Street and proceed down Main Street to Memorial Hall. Some of the selectmen have been asked to speak at the memorials, and Mr. Terrence Cummings will be presenting a plaque to the King family at Memorial Hall. And there'll be a luncheon buffet afterwards at the VFW Post. I'm participating in my brother's wedding on Monday, so I will not be participating in this event, although I otherwise would.
Okay.
So, pleasure of the board on the parade.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, and I'll vote yes. 5 in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Permanent intermittent officers, we've gotten 12 signatures on the open competitive list from Civil Service. That's 1 short of what was required. Civil Service said there's still 9 Oxford residents out there that remain on the list. So it's whether you want to try and continue to use the existing list or start over.
What's the pleasure of the board, and I'll entertain a motion. What would you like to do, board?
Well, I'll make a motion that we go with the 12 that we have.
Now, question on that, do we pay for them to do the training, or the training on their own? They might, if they do the training, they might go to another town.
I'll second for discussion.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now discussion. Thank you. Go ahead, Alan.
My question was, do they pay for their own training, or does the town pay for it? And then if they, because 12's a lot, I thought we said 7.
Those are just the interviews. We're gonna narrow it down to 6.
Oh.
There's a formula, Alan, that has to be used. It's a civil service formula. It's, I think it's 2 to 1.
It's 2 to 1 plus 1.
2 to 1 plus 1 formula. So if you're appointing 3, you need 6.
Yeah, for the 6 people that we need 13 people to sign.
Right, that would
We
be
only get 12.
double plus 1.
So we can only appoint 5 from that list
Right.
that we presently have. You
Okay,
can
then-
keep that and just appoint the 5, or you could go for another list, additional names to appoint the other one.
Okay, so when I read the correspondence, I misunderstood it, because I thought we could go
with the 12.
with the 12 and hire 6, because we asked, because we asked for the 13. We weren't able to get the 13.
Right.
So we would either have to do one or two things. We would have to get one more person to sign or put another list out.
We have to put a request into civil service, they'll have to give us an updated list. Or we could,
Try to get one more person.
or we could just choose 5 at this time and then go for another one later.
I can't see going through all this over again. I mean, why don't we just go for the 5 at this point? Rather than to have our office go through all this paperwork again, dealing with civil service. It's like starting all over again for one position.
Yeah, right.
I also look at the time delay. You know, the sooner we get
Exactly.
those 5 people, the better we'll be.
Yes.
So,
So
do you
that-
want to
I
amend
don't know
that?
that I have to. I think if we go with the 12 that I made the motion for, we'll only be able to.
We'll only be able to choose 5.
So,
Okay, great. Any other discussion? Then I'll call for the vote.
yes.
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 And I'll say yes, that's 5 in affirmative, so we'll interview those 12 candidates.
And I don't know if Alan got his question answered, Mr. Chairman, about the training?
I did.
Oh, you did,
Oh.
okay.
Thank you.
You've got a dog complaint hearing coming up. The complaint was included in your mail packet. We're requesting that you schedule the date, the hearing for July 7th, 2015.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion? Call for the vote,
Yes.
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 and I'll say yes. And that'll be on July 7th, correct?
The board is in receipt of a right of first refusal concerning a property at 99 Dana Road, map 25, parcel B37.07. The Conservation and Planning Board are okay with not exercising the first right of refusal. What's the board's pleasure?
Entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we do not exercise our right of first refusal on the property located at 99 Dana Road.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion? Then I'll call for the vote,
Yes.
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 and I'll vote yes, and we will not exercise our right.
Okay, we've got administrative changes to a flammable storage license to correct the owner and the owner's address. The current owner should be changed to Technetics Group, Oxford, Inc. at 10 Old Webster Road. Pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the change to the license.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions? Then I'll call for the vote,
Abstain.
Yes.
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 and I'll vote yes. That's 4 in the affirmative, 1 abstention. It passes. Excuse me.
Okay, we've got a request for a livery service at 21 Bailey Road in Oxford. She's received approval from the zoning enforcement officer, and the request is for you to send a letter to the Massachusetts Port Authority letting them know it's okay for her to operate in the boundaries of Oxford.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there a licensing fee to the town for that?
I don't know the answer to that.
No. This isn't a
Kim-
taxi service.
No, it's a delivery.
All right. Any others? I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes. For an affirmative, we'll do that.
Okay, you've got a request for 2 one-day special pouring licenses. One is at VFW Post 5663. The requested dates are Saturday, June 13th, 2015, and Saturday, August 22nd, 2015, in both cases from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the special pouring licenses for the VFW for June 13th and August 22nd.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions? Call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Abstain?
Yes.
And I'll say yes. That's 4 in the positive and 1 abstention. It passes.
Okay, the meals tax passed at town meeting, and the Commissioner of Revenue has been informed, so we should be on track to begin collecting those revenues, or making those revenues charged effective July 1. And I'll get back to you when we get the first check.
How does that work? Does it go off their revenues and they have to submit that report to the town?
We actually have to let them know all the places in town that are eligible to charge the extra tax, and then they communicate with those businesses.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep. Some time back, you got a memo from the planning board about eliminating a no left turn lane prohibition at 15 Sutton Ave, which is Dunkin' Donuts. And staff take a look at it, and staff concurs that the no left turn prohibition could be removed without a detriment to safety.
I'll entertain a motion that we approve that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any question or discussion?
I have a comment. I'm just reading this, and they're saying there's no accidents happening there because we don't allow the left-hand turn. But yet, we want to reinstate the left-hand turn. Why would we want to do that? I'm at Dunkin' Donuts fairly often. And I pull out of there, and there I do see people taking the left turn. And it creates major problems when people are taking a left turn. They pull out, they're blocking traffic coming the other way, people coming down the hill. They're blocking people that are coming in that two-way lane. And that's the people that are doing it illegally. Now we're going to let countless hundreds of people do it legally. I don't understand. I mean, it's people, and the way this reads is people are doing it and it's not a problem. Well, they're doing it on occasion and it's not a problem. So let's just make it legal. Doesn't make sense to me. If anyone goes to Dunkin' Donuts in the morning, the cars wrap all the way around. It is one car after another after another. If even a third of those people turn left, it's going to be a traffic nightmare on Sutton Avenue in the morning. I mean, when I leave my house in the morning, it takes me sometimes 5 minutes to get to the center of town. It's ridiculous. So why would we want to do this? We have we have the data that shows that it's working properly. We're not having accidents. Now because of that, we're gonna say let's do left-hand turns out of there. Doesn't make sense to me. I would recommend that we don't lift the prohibition.
I agree with you, Mike, because it just doesn't happen in the morning. It's people. I mean, I've seen it multiple times, and that's exactly it. They don't know what that turning lane is for, and they're taking that left-hand turn. And they're sitting, kind of in that lane and kind of in the driving lane, and nobody can get by. So I agree with you.
And it's far different than the people on the street. You may have Park Street. You may have one person that comes down Park Street every 10 minutes
Yeah.
and may go left or right. Dunkin' Donuts, one person, it's a car every 30 seconds. And I've actually seen where one guy pulled out and he couldn't go immediately, and the other guy was right behind him. So now we had two cars blocking Sutton Avenue because one guy wanted to go.
Well, the other thing, I think, is that the location of Dunkin' is right at that knoll. When you're coming out of Park Street, you can see.
All right.
So those people are very good about taking their left-hand turns, but Dunkin' Donuts, they can't see. So they're pulling out because there's no car coming. And, you know, I don't know. Alan, yes.
Like it says here, during the review, it became apparent that many drivers are counting ignoring the no left turn sign. Why don't we put a cruiser there, so give them tickets then? So that way, you shouldn't be doing that.
Same reason why we don't have a cruiser, you know, checking speeders on our roads, you know, all the time, or checking the
Oh, yeah,
left-hand
all the
turns
time.
out of here, but,
Few times.
and you put a cruiser there, they're not gonna take the left-hand turn.
Well, you do it on occasion,
Yeah.
you know.
But,
You could park
yeah,
them
it
on-
would be nice,
I just can't
but
see
that's,
changing the law because people are
Well-
taking left-hand turns.
we have a motion on the floor, oh, excuse me, John.
I just, you know, I agree. I don't think we ought to change it because if you're traveling down Sutton Avenue, you cross the railroad tracks and you just start going down that note, that's when that suicide lane begins.
Right.
So it's catching people, you know, oh, wow, I can't travel that lane. I gotta stay in this lane. Now, if you've got somebody pulling out of Dunkin' Donuts to take a left turn, you're gonna back up traffic because they're gonna be stuck halfway
right.
through the second lane. And in the morning, you've got people coming from Charlton, Dudley, going down Sutton Avenue, and it's gonna be a nightmare. They're gonna be backed up sometimes right to the lights. You know, I say leave well enough alone. It's working. Let's just keep it the way it is.
Amend my motion.
Okay, you
I'll-
wanna amend your motion?
Yeah, I'll amend my motion
First
to,
we should withdraw.
excuse me, can't have to
Yeah, you
withdraw.
have to withdraw.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Now I'll,
And
You have
you'll
to withdraw
withdraw
your
your second,
I'll withdraw my second.
and I'll entertain a new motion.
I'll make a motion that we do not approve the removal of the no left-hand turn sign.
I will second that.
So we have a new motion of not removing the sign and a second. Any other discussion? So a favorable vote will mean we keep the sign there, no left-hand turn. Okay, call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes. That's 5 in the affirmative. We will not remove that sign.
Thank you. You guys are aware of the Charlton-Oxford Route 20 project. Got some feedback in the last couple of weeks that the MPO is considering defunding that project and not continuing to move forward with it at this time. They recommended, the staff person there recommended that we get letters from both towns' governing bodies asking them to continue support of the project so that it can stay funded. So the request is to have you guys send a letter to the MPO supporting the project.
I'll entertain a motion to send a letter.
I'll make a motion for discussion that we send the letter.
I'll second for discussion.
All right, it's been moved and second. Discussion?
I'll be real honest with you, I don't really know much about this project. For me to send a letter, I mean, Brian, are you familiar with this project? Is it,
Somewhat familiar with the project.
I mean, I don't know if it's a worthwhile project. I don't know anything about it whatsoever. I don't know if it's
It's to
are they
make
pulling-
safety improvements along
Are they
the
pulling the
corridor.
funding because they found that it wasn't a,
I'm sure they're talking about pulling the funding, but probably because somebody's politicking within the organization to get money for a different project.
Correct. I
They're not pulling the funding because it's not a worthwhile project.
no, go ahead,
Yeah,
John.
I mean, you know, that project has been on the drawing boards for quite some time. They did the Charlton portion. If you notice, if you travel from Sturbridge to Oxford, you'll see the barriers, you'll see the widening of the roadways, and it goes all the way until just before you get to the Oxford line. It ends there. And the strip between there and J. Anthony's hasn't been done. And it would be a shame to have the Auburn section done. It took Auburn 3 years to complete that project, and widening that and changing those intersections. And they ended right at J. Anthony's. Now, they want to stop there and leave a gap just in the town of Oxford. I don't think that's fair at all.
Right.
I think they ought to finish that project. It's been on the drawing board for a number of years, and I think we ought to fight real hard to try to keep that funding there so that they can complete that section of Route 20.
Any other I'm a member of this board, and this is new to me. I mean, I just looked at the tip list today, and as of today, that wasn't removed. So that's why I definitely think a letter would not hurt us at all, and it's definitely something that in 3 weeks I'll be bringing forth, asking, because they base a lot of the projects now on criteria, safety, how it lessens congestion, the gas emissions from cars sitting around waiting in line, and things of that nature. And when I think of safety, I think of that section of road and say, my Lord, you know, there is definitely a need, especially at that speed that they travel. You know, you're talking 50, 55 miles an hour around the corner there by John Deere up in that area. That's crazy, you know.
I think the letters ought to be sent
Yep,
also to our representatives and our senator,
good, very
in
good.
addition to that, to help them push politically for it. And it wouldn't hurt even to send one to the congressman, because
Yep.
there's federal funds involved.
So what would the board like to do?
Well, I made a motion to send the letter. I'll amend my motion to include, that we send the letter to our senators, our congressmen, our representatives, as John requested.
I'll second that.
And we haven't amended, so we'll send it to the Central Mass Planning Authority, plus our senators and representatives. Okay, so I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes, that's 5 in the affirmative. We'll send those letters.
Okay. Jack and Jill Preschool has a 50th anniversary coming up. They've asked for a proclamation and request the selectmen to come and read the proclamation on June 7th at 9:30 a.m.
Entertain a motion that we make that proclamation.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any question or discussion? I'll call for the vote,
Yes.
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 and I'll say yes also. So we'll send that recognition. And Karen, I will volunteer to go and present that. Okay, on that date. Okay, next item.
Received the resignation of Kevin O'Connor from the Finance Committee effective May 5th, so I just wanted to thank him for his service to the town. We do have now 2 openings on the Finance Committee, so if anybody's wishing to serve on that committee, please come by my office and get a volunteer application. I've also appointed Keith Carpenter to a vacancy on the Recreation Commission. And just a reminder about the volunteer brunch. That's at the Council of Aging on May 30th at 10:30 a.m. You've all been invited to attend. I've been working on regionalizing the Veterans District so that we don't lose our reimbursement revenue. And it looks like that may come together without having to change any staff or add any money.
Great.
So you may hear about that in the news in the next couple of weeks as it gets talked about in these other towns. And let's see. Last executive session, you guys took a straw vote in executive session to approve the changes to the police MOU. I request that you take a public vote on that now.
I'll entertain a motion. You're talking about the contract?
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion. We approve the contract.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion? A call for the vote,
Yes.
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 and I'll vote yes. For an affirmative, we will approve that contract.
Thank you. One last thing that was in your packets, a letter from the Hampshire Council of Governments about the community aggregation. In order to go forward, you guys need to authorize me to enter into an agreement with them so that they can begin the study.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? Call for the vote,
Yes.
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 and I'll vote yes.
That's all I got.
Very good, thank you. Selectmen's requests.
I am all set, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm all set.
Thank you. Alan?
I'm all set.
Thank you.
All set.
Wow. Well, I have a couple of things. Number one, I think I would like to appoint the Cable Advisory Committee. They would all serve for a year to 2016, and those people are Catherine El Jadidi, Eugene McKay, and Vika, and Howard Merson.
Make a motion that we appoint those individuals to the Cable Advisory Committee.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll ask for the vote,
Yes.
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 and I'll say yes. So we have appointed them to the Cable Advisory Committee. And the last thing I do have to say is that I know I periodically pat him on the back, but I think he's doing a great job, and that's our town manager. For those people, I know it's been a long meeting, but I'll make it quick. For those people that don't know, you know, times are tough. We have a hard time sometimes with people helping us out. And yesterday during the election, we had an issue where we needed some help. We needed like a janitor or something like that, I guess, to help move around equipment and stuff like that. And our town manager stepped right up, put his jeans on, and was out there helping Laurie and them, you know, hustle around equipment and stuff like that. So I think that's a little above and beyond his duties, but that's the type of guy he is. And then I guess he also then took the time to go around to the various polling areas and just talk to the people that were there doing the work at the various polls. And I think that's something new and vibrant that we have going on here, and I just want to personally thank him. It's tremendous, and I thought the board and the general public should know that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis.
I'll entertain, as nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll call for the vote,
Yes.
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 and I'll vote yes. We are